There's a lot to talk about when it comes to these two people. They're definitely great artists. I especially love how when they sit together, they interact with each other. When you see the two great minds collide, and they have a very interesting discussion on a very classical topic to tell a story. And this is actually, I encountered this interview because I was reading this book, her early diaries when she was in her 30s, when she was being very fragile, very passionate and everything. And so I was just checking some of her talks on the internet, and I bumped into this one. And I found I always watch it. When I write a performance piece or write a script for opera piece or anything, it is, or even just record a record, the title of a record, when anything that has a narrative, even choreography, the methodology behind to tell the story, and you can learn so much from just an hour of conversation between these two. There's a lot of stories that is, you don't tell about life as the life we're living. You talk about dilemma, you talk about traumas and all these things that doesn't even have to be real. So the story, the background of the story is already fictional. It comes out of a fantasy. And that's one point that I felt resonant a lot with. And the other thing is about inspired me a lot in constructing narratives when they were talking about the untold, which I think it's the untold also relates a lot in especially minimalism in music, let's say. Because quite often, let's say, when you're listening to a music piece, it has to be experimental. It can be pop, it can be dance music, and it gives me quite often some sort kind of shiver that when there's a drop, especially when it goes to silence in the middle of the song, and then it comes back again. It gives you some kind of suspense. And they were talking about when you are writing a story, when you're telling it in a matter of the focus is not on the story that is being told, is on the part that is untold. I think this is definitely the more exciting part, even with, let's say, the rhythm. For example, with the work of Pauline Oliveros, who is also one of my favorite composer, and her idea about how sound triggers feelings, and even with like gender in music and everything, I think she's a great artist. Anyways, her work, I think, is kind of telling a story, but to tell a story by inviting people to think of the untold, because the rhythm of her work lies into the part that was being silenced, being muted, because the way she treats her instruments. So, I think in this way, I do believe that the boundaries between different, there was not, like, let's say they're not musicians, but I think the way they treat their work can definitely inspire musicians. On the other hand, the way to treat sound, the way to tell the story using sound can be so various. It doesn't have to be a music piece. It can be a performance piece. It can be a theater piece. It can be an opera piece without an opera singer. It can be a film, but it can all come out of the idea of sound, the concept of to tell a story using sound. But the forms can be very different from each other. Hi, we're still on STRRR TV, and I'm still here with you. I'm Pan Daijing. So it was quick. We're coming to the last video now. I'm going to show you an excerpt of this film, Ashes of Time, directed by a famous Chinese director, Wang Kaiwai. This was the 1994 version. It was one of the first films I've ever watched in my life, and which I would say this is my favorite film, no one of the favorite film, because it meant a lot to me. It still means a lot to me. I watch it every time I feel uncomfortable. in any situation. It introduced me to cinema, which has become one of the most important and inspiring thing to me in my work. So the specific part I'm showing is a story of this girl, Mu Rongyan, this lady, who got confused if she's actually a man or a woman. And she's fine basically her whole life. The first early years of her life, she just went to find a very great killer that can help when she thinks she's a woman to kill the man who she thinks is her brother, or the other way around. And then she actually become better, a kung fu master that's better than anyone else, and no one could kill her. So that's basically the sum up of this short 10 minutes you're gonna see. And I love how the cinematography and how subtle and poetic this whole story and the director is shooting it. And I think it's quite it's romantic, but in a very melancholic way. And it hit me. It teased you viewer, but also kind of, I think it hit people really hard. It's a kind of different power. Let's say before, if we were showing this kind of, I was talking a lot about this fearless, raw, like it was kind of a hard power, and this is a kind of soft power, but it's kind of more powerful in a way. So let's watch it.